Hello! Today's video will introduce the concepts of both transparency and replicability in research. I'm Janelle Peifer, Assistant Professor of Psychology at Agnes Scott College. I teach abnormal and different types of social psychology, and I'm really passionate about helping undergraduates develop as researchers. This video is targeted to undergrads doing research in the social sciences. It's a good fit for those who are just starting out, but also might be useful to graduate students who want a quick introduction to the current best practices regarding replicability and transparency in research. So, what are we going to do during today's video? First off, we'll define what transparency is and discuss what it means. We'll also introduce the concept of replicability and explore why it matters. We'll discuss some strategies for incorporating these two concepts into your work as a student and a burgeoning researcher, and then we'll end with concrete next steps that you can follow. The 10-minute video is most appropriate for undergraduates who are new to research, but it might also be a part of a course on research methods or design, or an orientation or introduction assignment for a lab orientation. All right, so starting off right from the beginning, what is transparency? So, in short, transparency is demonstrating integrity in your research, making sure that everything that you do is planned and preserved in a way that anyone who is exposed to your notes and data should be able to replicate what you did. That way, they're able to understand the choices you made, the questions that you asked, and the results that you found most fully. One way to plan and preserve research is done through something called pre-registration, which we'll talk about more in just a few minutes. So, in short, transparency is being able to preserve information in such a way that it can be reproduced from beginning to end. It's clarity about your intent, your methodology, and your theoretical framework for collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data the way that you have chosen to. So, why does it even matter? Why should we even talk about transparency and replicability in research? Well, first off, false findings can have profound impacts on society, the field of research, and individuals. We know that research shapes practice, policies, and people. For example, recommendations for funding for government programs, or even thinking about the medications that one might take. If we don't have accurate findings and transparency about how the results were found, there can be profound negative impacts on the community as a whole. Moreover, science that doesn't replicate or isn't integrous can damage all science and its credibility. If we find that there are false findings, it really leads to questions about the integrity of all science. Moreover, replicability and transparency benefits researchers who are able to return to your work later on, publish and present, and try to replicate the findings that you found to show that it's more than just a single instance of a phenomenon, but something that's more stable and persistent over time. So overall, there are many reasons to consider integrating transparent and replicable practices into your research. So, if you're sold on that it's important, how do you actually do this? Well, first off, you should always use transparent practices in your research. From the beginning, set up an organizational system that preserves your process clearly. Your plan for your research and analyses, your database and accompanying code books and code list, any command or syntax files that you use that are labeled for each step of the process. We'll discuss this more in future videos with TIER, and one way to do this is to use the TIER protocol that can be found on the TIER website. So, by being able to use all of these different techniques, from planning, organization, keeping keeping detailed notes of your command and syntax files, and also keeping lab notes for yourself detailing the decisions you made and why. Those are all ways that you can incorporate transparency and replicability into your research practices. So, I mentioned a couple of resources that I would like to share with you in more detail. First off, the tier protocol located on projecttier.org is a great place to start for a basic understanding of how to introduce an organizational system that will help you keep detailed notes of your entire process in such a way that you can replicate it in the future or that other researchers can choose to replicate what you've done. As you can imagine, this would be extremely helpful if you're working on an ongoing research project, or say if you do a senior thesis as an undergrad and would like to return to the data 2 years later as a grad student to see if you can build upon what you've done. It's impossible to remember every step and every decision and every way that you changed your data in the beginning, so having these detailed notes, command files, syntax documentation will prove indispensable in your work. Moreover, pre-registration is a great way to plan out your planned analyses, methodology, research questions, and just about everything about your research process. This will help you to ensure that you have an integrous and transparent process and that you have a detailed plan in place for the analyses you choose to run and everything else. There are two pre-registration options that you might explore more: the Open Science Framework and also aspredicted.org. So in terms of next steps, you can think about how to use the tier protocol and how to implement these strategies in your own research practices. It shouldn't be too hard to just start off with planning your research in a detailed way, organizing your research folders in such a way that you're able to understand where to find all of the information you know and keep detailed notes of the decisions you make throughout your process and why. Good luck on your research. I wish you all the best. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Here is the information for my email address and also my personal professional website.